Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday Wake Up class. Today we're going to be talking about working with buyers the peak producer way. So I'm going to close the GoToMeeting window there and shift to control to my iPad, and we're ready to go. If you do have any questions, just type any question in the chat area down at the bottom there, and we'll address those questions at the end of the class today. So, working with buyers the peak producer way. As usual, with peak producers, we talk about habits, attitudes, and skills. Our classes are focused on, for the most part, giving you new skills, tools, improving your skills and tools. But we also spend some time talking about helping you make sure that you're implementing the best habits, because if you have great skills but poor habits, you're not going to be as successful, and you're probably going to be frustrated because you're not going to be able to make the best use of those skills and tools that we provide you. So habits such as first but not most, big rocks first, working on your business development skills first of all. We talk a lot about that. When those two things go together, good skills and good habits, that's going to naturally allow your attitude to improve. All of these things work together to allow you to make more money, do a better job for your clients, enjoy your business and your family and your life better all of the time. So the wake up skill this morning, the peak producer's approach of working with buyers and getting them off the fence, because when you have a buyer that's on the fence, you're on the fence too, and getting splinters is not one of the more fun things that we can do. So let's start out with a simple definition. Very easy to do. Buyer is someone who buys. All of us who've been in this business for a while have worked with a lot of buyers who really aren't buyers. They're lookers, and we have all kinds of names for them that I won't get into here. But when you really work with someone who wants to buy, that's the key. And it's up to us to make sure, frankly, that we are qualifying someone to know that we're only spending our time right now with someone who wants to buy. Someone who doesn't want to buy right now, that's okay. It's up to us to make sure that we're not wasting our time with them, but we are investing in them for the future for us. So let's talk for a second about the benefits of working with a buyer. Obviously, for those of you who are newer in the business, chances are you're going to be working with buyers first more than listings. But the upsides to working with a buyer, number one, it's the quickest way to generate a commission check, especially for you newer agents. You can also sell your own listings. If you've got listings out there, that's a great way to do it, and everybody loves to do a me and me or a double ender, whichever term you like to use. It's easy to get referrals from a buyer. Let's talk about that for a second. Most of the time when people are buying a home, and they're actually a buyer, they're actually looking to really buy a home, they're very excited about real estate, the market. If you're doing a great job, which you should be doing based on the training and the coaching that you get from your managers and your comrades in the business, if you're doing a great job, they're going to be excited about you as well. And they're going to be going to parties, going to work, talking about their process and so forth. Wow. If you remind them that you work by referral, chances are you can get at least 2 or 3 referrals from an active buyer client. So it's easy to get referrals from them because they're excited about the business, about the market, and about what you're doing for them. And last, there's less pressure on your performance. If you stop and think about that, with a buyer, yes, there may be a time frame. Ideally, there is a time frame, so you're working hard to meet their time frame. But with a listing, every day that goes by without a contract on the house, there's pressure that you are not performing potentially. With a buyer, it's just that they haven't found the right house, most likely. So less pressure on your performance when you're working with a buyer. The downsides of working with a buyer, number one, they can be very demanding of your time and energy. And this is crucial to understand whether you're working with someone who really is, by definition, a buyer, someone who buys. And if that's the case, then you can be responsive. You can allow them to be demanding of your time and energy, and you can devote your time and energy to them because it's going to turn into a transaction soon and a paycheck for you soon. And so you want to be responsive and provide excellent COO deal-making service to them. You want to avoid, however, spending lots of time and energy on people who are not buyers. So the other downsides, there's no guaranteed income. Again, this is especially the case if you find yourself running around showing houses to people who are not really buyers. So that's one of the main things we want to help you avoid doing that. So there's also a lack of loyalty. With a listing contract, you've got a contract. You've got at least a 6-month contract usually to list a house, and ideally that means that you're not going to be fired no matter what happens. So there's a relationship there that's contractually based. With buyers, we've all had stories of someone going to an open house and saying, oh, we fell in love with this house and they told us we had to buy it right then, and I'm sorry we didn't get back with you. So there can be a vast lack of loyalty, but we need to do our best to train and guide people of why they need to rely on us to help them make sure they make the best deal. They can get cold feet. Buyers can change their mind. Even people who really are buyers can change their mind. They can have life changes, job changes, et cetera, et cetera. So things might fall apart. And then last, when deals fall apart with a buyer, you might lose your client. A good example might be a situation where there's an ugly situation with an inspection, and your buyer has a misunderstanding of something, which again makes it very important that we are training our buyers on what the market is like, what the inspections are like, what major defects are and what they are not, and what allows them to get out. But when a deal falls apart, they can walk away and go to another agent. With a listing, if a deal falls apart, chances are your listing contract is still going to remain in place for you. So those are the upsides and downsides of working with buyers. The key for us to be successful in working with buyers, and again, focusing on the fact that a buyer is someone who buys, is to work strategically with them, strategically in the long term with them. Several steps will help us determine and qualify whether that person is a buyer, and then help us to work strategically with them. The first is what is known as CITO, C-I-T-O, come into the office. We all have been in situations where we get floor calls or even a referral from someone that, hey, I just met somebody at a party. I don't know them, but they said they were looking at buying a house, and I told them about you, and here's their number, give them a call. Even a referral like that, you don't really know exactly their motivation level. So when you get that floor call, that sign call, that first conversation with the referral, if they initially want to go start seeing houses, then you need to say to them, the first thing we need to do is to look at putting together a strategic approach for you for working to find the right house for you at the right time frame. And that means come into the office and have a meeting to go through a list of questions for you, et cetera, et cetera. So come into the office. Now, come into the office these days can also mean meet me at Starbucks, okay? Would you meet me at Starbucks? Obviously that can work beautifully if you've got somebody who calls you and they're on the other side of town from your office, and they live on the other side of town from your office, and they wanted to see a house. It's wonderful if you look up that house and it's under contract, so you've got a good reason to not immediately show it to them. But then come into the office in terms of, oh, you live on that side of the town. I'll tell you what, there's a Starbucks at the corner of X and Y. Why don't we meet there at 4 o'clock? Would that work for you today? Because I'd like to walk through the process with you to make sure that you guys start off on the right foot with looking for a house, and that I don't frustrate you, and that we end up with the result strategically that works the best for you. Obviously, the most important thing once you do get to sit down with them in the CITO, whether it's at Starbucks or wherever, is to talk about, have they been pre-approved yet? Somebody who's not yet been pre-approved, especially right now in this extraordinarily tight market in the most of the country right now, where there's a limited number of listings available and a high number of buyers, and people are having to write full price offers or even above offers, and there's multiple offers in situations. It makes no sense for somebody to waste any time thinking about writing an offer if they're not pre-approved very solidly. So this is an excellent approach for them. And these first two things, come into the office and get pre-approved. If someone refuses to do that and just says, well, they just want to see houses and they're not sure they want to buy, then that's fine. Add them to your list and follow up with them. But be very wary of going out and starting to show houses for them because they are probably not a buyer and you're probably going to be wasting your time. So the overall goal of those first two is to help you set the tone that you are going to be working strategically with them and guiding and leading them through the process rather than them dictating the pace and the approach to going through the business to buy a home. So the goal then is to fully engage each buyer. You start out with that, again, coming into the office, and then we have templates that we can provide to people if you don't already have them, where there's lots of great questions. I'm a firm believer, I've talked about this a lot, of leading with questions, whether it's on a listing or a new buyer, leading with questions to find out what their goals are, what their desires are. Obviously, with a buyer, we're going to be asking them how many bedrooms do you want, what neighborhoods, et cetera, et cetera. But the goal is to dig deeper than that, the whys. So why would you like to have a walk score of 65? What's important about that for you folks? Why would you like to live in this neighborhood? To cut down on your commute to work. Okay, you drive an hour now? Wow. Okay, you've just found some much more important information that helps you understand their big why. The goal of all this is to not specifically to help them find a house, but to make a decision. And sometimes that decision is that they're not ready. And if they're not ready, that's fine. That doesn't mean they're bad people or you should lop them off your list. That means you're in the business for the long term. Keep them on your list and nurture that relationship so that when they are ready, sometimes with your help, they're going to be working with you. Again, we've got this initial buyer consultation checklist. The goal is to go through all of these and collect and organize as much information as you possibly can from them, including things like, how would you like to be communicated with? How do you want me to communicate with you? So go through that. That's the purpose of that come into the office. And again, that can be at the cigar bar or at Starbucks or wherever, but be very wary of showing people more than one house until they've done this. Maybe one house, but be very wary of doing more than that. So again, the key, as I said, is to help them make a decision. And one of the biggest elements of that is, what is their big why? Familiar things that we hear frequently in the business are, we want to move the kids. The kids are now going to be going to public school next year, and we want to move to a different school zone, a school area, so that they can be in better schools. That's huge. Commute can be huge. Walkability can be huge. Wanting a lot with trees on it or a view of water. Everybody has a different why, and it's crucial that we find out as soon as possible what their big why is. And of course, sometimes if it's a couple, one spouse may have one big why and the other spouse might have another big why. So then you've got some negotiation to do to help them reach a common big why. So elements that go into helping them reach a decision is helping them understand the market, what's going on in the market right now. We've all had this experience where somebody will say, especially this time of the year, where somebody will say, I want to buy a house, and a friend of mine told me that last fall they bought a house and got it for 83% of the list price, and we want to find a bargain. We want to find a house. We are in neighborhood X with XYZ condition, perfect condition, and we only want to buy a house that we can get for under 85% of the list price. So there you need to educate them into what's going on in the market. And right now, that's an impossible task. And we are not Don Quixote, so we're not going to help them achieve their impossible dream. Now, other times the market might be very soft, and there might be another direction there. But the goal is right away to help them understand where the market is right now for buyers, especially in the area that they're looking at. It's also, number 3 there, to explain to them that buying a house is a process of elimination. So many people look at buying a house. We've all seen this when those of us who've been in the business for a while. You go out with people and they go, yes, let's add this to our list. And having a list of a top 2 or 3 is okay. but no more than that. So when we have 8 homes to see on a Saturday or something like that, the goal is to end up with 1 or 2 of those to keep on the list if they're not ready right away to write an offer. So it's a process of elimination, not accretion or addition to that list. And that can be very difficult sometimes. We've all had situations where someone has said, oh, I hate this house, but I love the countertop. So let's keep this one on the list. No, we can put that countertop in a house that you love as opposed to buying the house for the countertop. So another way to go about this also is to encourage clients to score houses and to review them at when you're finished walking through and working with them and looking at any house. How would you rank this house? How would you rate this house? So again, process of elimination, starting with areas and neighborhoods. I was talking with an agent not long ago, very successful agent, who found herself in a situation where she was dealing with a couple of spouses, one of whom wanted to live in one part of Indianapolis, another wanted to live in a totally opposite part of Indianapolis. And she had ended up showing them houses in both areas, as if finding the right house was going to be the answer to that question. Now, we all know that the answer to that question lies in them deciding between themselves where they want to live first, and then focusing on a style, a price range, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to have a first floor master? Yes, no. Do we want a basement? Yes, no. How big of a lot, all that kind of thing, and then getting down into the home. So one good way of helping people pick areas and neighborhoods before you go out showing them houses all over the place is to encourage them to go out and look at open houses. And yes, you'll need to give them that training, that don't fall into the trap of an agent at an open house convincing them to write an offer and to exclude you. But going out, driving neighborhoods, daytime, nighttime, looking at the number of kids that are playing there, et cetera, et cetera. So they can do that on their own, picking out styles and coming up with a much narrower focus so that when you actually go out, start to show them homes, you're looking at a much narrower range of things to help them make a decision. So when you're out looking at homes with them, you've looked at those 8 homes, maybe it's the second day you've been out looking at homes and they've got 2 or 3 favorites, and you walked into another home and they're making all those great noises like my wife made when we walked into the house that we've lived in for 20 years. Oh, 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 with every room she went into. That's what you want to hear. When you hear that, and even if you don't hear that, if you hear some positive responses, here's the 3 questions you need to ask every time. Do you like this home? That goes hand in glove with how would you rate this home. And if they rate it a 4 or 5 on a scale of 1 to 5, then, oh, great. So you like this home. Fabulous. Yes, we do. The next question that so many times we forget to ask, can you see yourself living here? That's a much deeper question than do you like the home? A lot of people will say they like a home, and then when you say, but could you see yourself living here? They go, oh, no. I like the home. It's a cool home, but I couldn't begin to see myself living here. Okay, well, let's not rate this a 4 then. If you can't see yourself living here, let's rate this a 0 and take it off the list. So that helps you with that elimination side of things. If they do say, yeah, we could see ourselves living here. This is really great. Then is this the one you'd like to make an offer on first? A very crucial comment there, that first question, helps them to make sure they've not fallen head over heels in love with a house and will make silly offers on things. Although this time of the year in this market, people may have to do that. But is this the one you'd like to make an offer on first? Ask them that question. So many times we sort of leave that question dangling unsaid in the air and wait for them to make a decision on whether they may want to make an offer. All they can do is say no or yes. Let's write an offer. Or we'd like to see that other one first. Can we go look at that other one and then make a decision? The point is that you are helping them, guiding them, funneling them toward the point of reaching a decision on writing an offer on a house or not writing an offer on a house. So some tips on removing splinters from sitting on that fence. And again, you got these splinters as well as your clients. When they're on the fence, you're on the fence too. Remind them of their big why. And again, the big why is not, well, we want to buy a house. No, that's not the big why. The big why is, I can't stand this hour and 10-minute commute anymore. Or Jimmy and Sally are going into grade school next year and we want them to be in XYZ school corporation, or we want walkability or whatever. That's the big why, to remind them of that. And then ask them to consider the cost of procrastination. So what happens if you don't make an offer in the next 2 weeks? We're not going to be able to get Jimmy and Sally into the XYZ school corporation. Or if we don't make an offer and get you into a new house when the new construction starts on I-95, your commute is going to change from an hour and 10 minutes to 2 hours. So always try to tie things into a timing. That is oftentimes one of the biggest issues with people who may be renting and have a month-to-month lease or flexibility or something like that. That say, well, we don't have any time frame. The goal is with the big why and the cost of procrastination to help them establish a time frame of when they need to be writing an offer in order to be able to move into that house to get Jimmy and Sally into that school. That's the most obvious one, obviously. So, and then you'll want to leverage choice, price, payment, and the current speed of the market. Leveraging choice. Obviously, right now, in many areas in the state of Indiana, in many markets, we have a very limited choice. So your leveraging of choice there is, guys, you don't have time. If you want to have Jimmy and Sally in school or cut down that commute, you're going to need to make an offer on something very quickly and make a quick decision. Other times, the choice may be vast and wide, in which case then your goal is to help them develop a choice based on their big why and walk them through that process so they can come to a choice. Leveraging price, obviously, depending on what the current market is, the price can be an issue for them, and thinking about, are they prepared to spend a little extra money to buy a house in the current market conditions where they might have to pay full price or over full price to buy the house. If they're not, that's fine. Good for them. That doesn't mean they're bad people. Put them on your list to buy at a time when prices are not so competitive. And leverage the payment. We've all talked about this so many times. For those who are newer, keep in mind that a difference of maybe $2,000 in price, break that down to, your interest rate of the loan that you're taking out, that's $12 a month for you. And you've said you plan to live there for about 3 years and then hope to buy another home, a bigger home. That's a total cost of like less than $1,000. Do you want to keep that, keep you from buying a house? So leverage the payment and keep that in mind. The speed of the market, obviously, what's going on in the marketplace, and using all of these things to guide them to a decision. Not push, but to guide them to a decision. So again, stepping back, the key to serving a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, but really we're focusing on buyers here, is to have the ability to meet the emotional needs of the client, the emotional needs of the client. We buy emotionally and justify rationally. Again, my wife walking in the door of that house. Oh, I had to justify rationally what we might be spending to buy that house. Most people do that, even if they're an accountant or an engineer. They will be buying emotionally and justifying rationally. So you're meeting the emotional needs of your client. So be aware of their feelings and how you're helping them with that. This is a huge decision for them. Make the client feel they've been heard. Again, when we talk about the difference between leading and guiding versus pushing somebody, if someone ever complains to a manager or to an agent that they feel they're not being heard, that usually means they feel they're being pushed instead of being guided or led in the direction. So you want to make sure that you are showing them that you're hearing what they're saying, repeating back to them what they're saying, and using what they're saying and reminding them of their big why to help them with that process of elimination. And your goal is to make them feel that you can do something to relieve their frustration and anxiety. Keep in mind that one of the biggest frustrations about with buyers is that they look at homes and look at homes and look at homes, and they can never quite find the thing that they consider the perfect home. Well, number one, there is no absolute perfect home for anybody at any price range. Even Donald Trump probably doesn't live in the perfect home, no matter how much he spent for it. So Our goal is to help them focus on the big why, the most important elements of things, and by working at a process of elimination to help them avoid their frustration. And I use that word with people. We're going to work on this as a process of elimination. And I've had clients at the end of that process out, wow, I've never heard of anybody working and talking about this as a process of elimination. This was a great way to do it, although initially we weren't quite sure whether it would work the best. So some more tips on buyer client service. Silence is deadly. This works especially well with sellers, but if you've got a buyer who's got a time frame of looking for a house and they don't need to write an offer, they've got a lease that expires in 6 months, for example, and they want to go out and look at some houses from time to time, that's fine. That's great. Help them slowly work through that process. But if you're not working with them and showing them houses for a few weeks, don't forget to pick up the phone. Remember, the phone works both ways. And remember, an outgoing phone call usually can last only a couple of minutes. An incoming phone call from a client usually lasts a lot longer because they've got a lot of questions and may be disappointed or frustrated because they haven't heard from you. So what do you call and talk to the buyers about? To see how they're doing, to see if they've gone out and looked at any open houses, to update them on anything new that's come on the market, and to see if they'd like to see any houses and schedule their next time to go out. So again, silence is deadly with all of our clients. Keep in mind also that frequency leads to brevity. Just as I said, if you have a touch base Tuesdays, as one of our agents famously is known for having, where you make a time and you call all of your clients every Tuesday, both the listing clients and the buyer clients and even your top prospects, just to touch base, that frequency is going to make it so that you can be a lot less lengthy in your conversation with them. So frequency leads to brevity, which is a great use of your time. And then consistent communication gives the client more to talk about when they refer you. Again, that client with 6 months left on their lease, they've looked at a few houses with you, you're not going out with them for a few weeks again. You've called them, though, to update them on what's going on in the market and the temperature of the market, the way things are either picking up or slowing down. And then they meet somebody at a party or a church or at work who says, yeah, we're thinking about buying or selling. Wow, what a great thing for them to say that I guarantee you most other agents don't do. Yeah, my agent, we haven't looked at houses for 2 or 3 weeks. We don't need to buy one for 6 months. But our agent calls us every week to update us on what's going on in the market, or texts us, or whatever it might be. Again, you'll find out with your clients which their preferred method is. I still am a firm believer that voice to voice with a phone call is the best way to do things, because you can hear the sound and the tone of their voice and their reaction, where in a text it's difficult to judge whether they are drifting away or heading closer to you. So just a couple more things to finish up here. I'm a firm believer in templates, and we've got these posted. And if you would like to have some and can't find it, shoot me an email. We'll get it over to you. The pending to closing checklist, guiding your client to the closing table, a strong finish with excellent service. All too many agents fail when we have reached a purchase agreement is signed and accepted, and we sort of go on, and many agents, frankly, go out knocking on doors and calling other expired listings, trying to drum up that next client. When we work by referrals, we've got a much more steady stream of new business coming our way, so we don't have to spend our time worrying about where the next client is going to come from. So we can focus on serving our clients. And this is one of the things that we talk about when we make our presentation for listings in our 7-step blueprint for selling a house, is that contract management from pending to closing is one of the things that we work on and have systems and tools to make sure that we don't forget to be in touch, and we are guiding our client through this process. Same applies with buyers, and we've got checklists that you can use, and you'll want to go through this in your initial discussion with these buyers when you're still convincing them to work with you, perhaps, that this is an area where you are fully in control of everything, and you're leading them through all of the difficult processes of the inspection, the appraisal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all those aspects there. So, and we've got this checklist for you to use to make sure that you don't miss anything. So to summarize, the Wednesday Wake Up skill today, we've talked about putting it all together, the knowing how to work with buyers and leading them through the process, leading and guiding them through the process, and getting them off the fence helps you control and optimize your time and energy, and asking for referrals when you're doing all of this, and minimizing the time and energy you're spending, or optimizing the time and energy you're spending on these active buyers. And remember, buyers are people who buy, and all of that will help establish your attitude of knowing you stand on a solid platform of growing your business while making your life easier. So again, working with buyers, somebody who buys, working with a process of elimination as opposed to adding things on, and helping people remember their big why. Those are probably the most crucial aspects of working with buyers. And let's see if anybody has any questions. Doesn't look like anybody has any questions at this point in time, so thank you very much. Sorry for the abbreviated session this morning, but we'll look forward to next week live, I think, at the Fisher's office, but we'll confirm that for you. So thanks, everybody. I've recorded this. We'll finish it up. I will send it around, and if you have any questions anytime, don't hesitate to call. Take care. Thanks, everybody. Bye.